my scrappy friends, welcome to my channel. This is a layout that I made for Get It Scrapped. We were working with jelly plating and jelly plating like techniques. So this is a mixed media type of challenge that we are doing, and I'm gonna use that cutting board like a jelly plate because I don't have a jelly plate. So a jelly plate is like a piece of glass that you can put paint on and you spread it usually with a brayer, and you can do it in different blobs and stuff. So as you can see, I have the paint like layered differently. So I have that flat layer and then I put some blobs of other paint. I really like doing this with a high acrylic paint, so like more dense, and I feel like you can have a little bit more control because it's a heavy body type of paint. You can use whatever kind of paint you want. So I'm using Dina Wakley because that's what I had for more of a heavy body. I'm going to add some other stuff to this. But so this is just how I'm starting it. Okay, so this is not really like jelly plate because it's not. But the techniques are the same. You're taking a paint and you're layering it on, and you can do lots of different things with this. So I could have punched stuff out, which I believe some of the ladies on the team did. You can do a big area or a small area. I did a whole layout. So even though I have two sections where I'm working, I'm going to start filling it in with some other things, and this will give it that more of that jelly plated type of look because there's lots of different layers. So now I'm going to take a thinner paint. So this is you're watching me kind of do this. Sorry that my head's in the way. It was really hard to edit this because I leaned over a lot to do this. So I'm taking that dauber, and it has acrylic paint from Shimmers, and then it also had some some paint thinner that is like acrylic medium, fluid medium, which helps it thin down without losing the paint molecule. It doesn't change the paint molecules, if that makes sense. So in the dauber, I really like that because you have a lot more control over where you're daubering. So I did that with that paint, and then this is another paint that I'm using a sponge applicator, and this is just the Tim Holtz like blender, and this one is not the foam, it's the other one. So I have like a whole bunch of those, and they don't work for everything, but for paint they work quite a bit. So like I said, I'm sorry my head's in the way. It's kind of hard to do this without putting your head in the way because you really got to get in there and you really got to move the media around with the stencil. And I find the key to making this not look really weird is to not do the whole stencil so it's blocky, but also to do it in different areas, but to kind of look and see where the area where there's white space and where you don't want white space. So and I really liked having the different shading. So if you're not just using the paint the whole time, if that makes sense. So not just refilling the paint on your dauber every single time. So this is a charcoal pencil, and I got this for my art journaling. So kind of what I'm doing is techniques that I would do in an art journal on a layout, and it's really simple. I mean, if you're not using a ton of paint, I didn't even add gesso to the background. So I just drew some circles, and now that black paint had the high fluid medium in it. So then that also made the black paint really thin. And so when you squeeze it out of the bottle, it just plops and makes these awesome, awesome, awesome blobs. I really love it for splatters. It's awesome and amazing. You get these great, like, it does take a while to dry because the fluid medium is, that's the point, is to make the paint last longer. But so now I let it dry. After a lot of these stages, you kind of have to let it dry, or otherwise it will just kind of muddy. And if you want your colors to muddy a little bit, that's fine. But if you really want to see some crisp details in some of the elements, especially with the stenciling and each little layer, you really do want to let it dry. So this takes a long time to do. And as you can see, I did some paint and I just used my paintbrush and just kind of did some strokes. I played around with trying to do it on like a jelly plate, and I didn't like it. It smushed too much, so that's why I just used my paintbrush. And that was a Bria Reese like pen, like a paint pen, and so it has acrylic paint in it, and I really love the color of the paint, but it didn't, I don't know, I don't like it for just like painting on. I don't know, it's not big enough to do a lot, and you really got to squeeze it. So what I'm doing right now is looking for some papers to do behind my photo, and I am sorry if the editing of this is a little weird. iMovie was acting really weird, and so now that I'm watching this and doing the voiceover, I feel like it didn't, some of the editing that I did do, it messed with it. But anyway, so this picture is in a black and white, and I really thought that the black and white would look awesome with this media because it's really crazy. There's a lot going on. So it really lets you focus on the photo because it's black and white, but it also allows you to use color in your papers, but to make it feel still like it works together and it blends together. So if you, that's one key. And I know, I'm sure you guys have heard this, but if you're going to do a really busy layout and you're worried about it being busy, use a black and white photo because that really, really does help. Then you're not worried about the graininess of the photo. You're not worried about the colors in the photo. You can just use whatever colors. And I really took advantage of using lots of the same colors in my papers and sticking to that black and white and purple and teal theme. And it really worked out awesome. And I really love how this turned out. There's definitely a lot going on. And for someone who doesn't like that, you know, tone it down. You could definitely just use that background and stick to black and white papers and a black and white photo, and it could still have that impact that you want because all the color is on the background. And that's one of the things that I love about making a background, is that you can do all this cool, amazing stuff and then just keep it really simple with your pattern papers. Or you can be like me and you can do all crazy, and that's awesome too. I think sitting back and focusing and thinking about the choices that you're making helps. There are a lot of times where I just fling media on a layout. I just pick whatever collection is just calling, and I did do that with this layout to an extent, but I also had in mind this color palette, and I think that really helped. Knowing that I wanted to use black and white for those pops, right? It just makes it like stand out. As you can see, I'm not doing anything. I seriously, I'm so sorry guys, because I feel like stuff that I edited out came back. You gotta love technology sometimes, right? And of course it wasn't while I was doing the media that it showed longer periods of time, because that would have been really nice. So yeah, so as you can see, that is that black and white, and I am going to be cutting off the stuff on the edges because that's one of the things that I do. So here we are back again. And as you can see, I have a lot of papers that I picked similar colors, and I use a lot of Cocoa Vanilla from the Bohemian line. Um, I use some stuff from that was digital that is from Teresa. So definitely I'll make sure I link to her store so that you can find her collections because they're super fun. And I love these black and whites. They like really that love paper and that starbursty, and it really goes with the charcoal pencil. Now I will say with the charcoal pencil, if you do something like that on your layout, it is going to smudge, so you don't want to touch it a lot. So if you're afraid that you're going to touch it and smear it, you might want to use like a protective spray or use like a really quickly like a gesso over it. That would probably help, but you do have to be careful because if you used any kind of ink, that might smear it and go in the gesso. So I just leave it be, and I just really try not to touch it. I try to put it in a protector right away, and then it just sits in the protector. And it really, for the most part, if you're not touching it too much, it's not gonna come off unless you're really touching it. So if you have a family that really is gonna want to touch everything. So as you can see, I'm building my layers on my photo, and I'm going with it. There's a lot of layers. I get this. This could be really intimidating for some people, but because I'm using the colors that are on my layout, I'm not really too worried about it. Like, yeah. I mean, I generally use a lot of similar photos or photos from the same time, or I scrapbook so much most of the time that I'm not worried about these stories getting lost. So if you're someone who doesn't scrapbook a lot and you're worried about your stories, because I could see that if you don't scrapbook a lot and you're worried about your stories, because I find that a lot of times if you're doing a lot of media, the story isn't really the big thing. And I really love the story behind this. I mean, my girls are sitting with their dad. We're waiting at a restaurant, which we don't really do very often, but we're sitting there and they're waiting, and they're just like chilling with their dad, and they don't get a lot of those moments. And these moments are just like awesome and amazing. And I love that we get to spend these times together. And and they can cuddle up to their dad for a few minutes while we're waiting, and that's awesome. And those are moments that I want to capture. Those are moments that I want to remember instead of, when the kids are fighting because we have to wait for a table. Those are the moments that you don't want to remember. You want to remember these special little cute moments. So if you're afraid that these stories are going to get lost, definitely make sure that you pick things on your layout that are going to bring out that story, and things like finding embellishments that help tell the story, that help bring that story out. And I know with me, I don't always do that, but I picked like that heart that says love this, and then I added that moment, so it says love this moment, so it's going to draw your eye back to the photo. There's all this stuff going on, but you're going to see those words up at the top. I'm going to be layering some stuff with a label with the date, and then that circle that says our story, and that's from Pretty Little Studio. And I'm going to put a hash. I thought about putting that ampersand, but I end up putting a hashtag up there. And I really just like using these little elements that they don't really mean any, like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, hashtag our story, but it really is just like taking these little things that help you can layer on it, and it just kind of helps. It tells this other story of like this time period. Those are things that were popular. Those were things that we see a lot, but it doesn't have to be like, oh, it doesn't have to be this title. It doesn't have to be all up in your face. It's just these little reminders of what, how things are said back, during a certain time, if that makes sense at all. So, I am working on just building some little layers and clusters so that it draws your eyes around, because as you see, now you can see that diagonal. So how I had those two sections with the media, now they're going to come together, and it doesn't even look like I took two blocks basically and just did blocks, because it all is starting to work together, is flowing together. And that's one thing that I do try to do, is see how the media is coming and put it together. So here are the close-ups. They're super fun. Definitely check out Get It Scrapped. Get It Scrapped is going to be ending at the end of the year, like the end to the beginning of the year. So you definitely, if you want to check it out, get in, save all the stuff, because once Get It Scrapped closes, you're not going to be able to get the class info. And there is so much information and so much stuff that Debbie has put together in class form for everyone, and it just is so fun, and it has really enriched my scrapbooking. So I will see you guys later, and I hope you have a great scrappy week. Bye.